Hi there, welcome to another one of my classic reviews where I pick one of my all-time favourite movies, give it a rewatch and then come review it. And in this video I'm going to be talking about Paths of Glory. So Paths of Glory is a 1957 film from director Stanley Kubrick. And it's basically his earliest genuine masterpiece. It's his earliest film which I think is basically flawless. It's the first film in a long career of fantastic films. It's often kind of under the radar because Stanley Kubrick made a lot more flashier masterpieces, films like 2001: A Space Odyssey, A Clockwork Orange, The Shining, Barry Lyndon. But Paths of Glory is a nice and simple film and a really strong anti-war sentiment. It's a film with quite an obvious moral message and it's quite simplistic. It's not a film which is Kubrick's usual complex and completely artistic, stylized, ambiguous work. Paths of Glory is quite unsubtle, it's quite direct. It's a film which is pretty much telling a story that's not particularly complicated, but it's very much emotional and very much a film that's crafted to perfection. It really showcases the skills of Stanley Kubrick from such an early age and such an early point in his career. It shows his fantastic use of visual language. This is the film filled with symmetry. It's filled with these fantastic shots which are symmetrical and filled with fantastic moments and fantastic movement. There's this fantastic movement through the trenches of World War I which just is symmetrical and just in line with the characters, and it's a very fantastic, iconic moment. This is a film filled with fantastic set pieces. It has the magnificent set piece of soldiers going over the trenches in World War I, going from no man's land. It has an infamous trial sequence and it ends with an infamous execution. This is a fantastic movie. It's about World War I and it's about the historical context of people who were shot for cowardice, executed for cowardice in World War I. It basically concerns a regiment who were sent over to go fight in no man's land, and because of the strength of gunfire they have to retreat, and then 3 of the men are charged with cowardice and put on trial and then sentenced to be executed. And the whole film is just about the utter barbarity of this scenario, about the fact that our own men on the Allied side were killing our own people just for not fighting and not being willing to fight, even though they literally would die if they were to fight. This is about the elite. It's about the fact that there were an aristocratic class of people whose position was the poor soldiers should fight or die, and if they don't obey me then I'll kill them myself. It's the whole thing about how the war is so inhumane. World War I is kind of a distinctive historical time anyway, because it's really the point where war is shown to be a complete farce. Up until this point, war had always been kind of farcical anyway, but the poor and the peasants and the lower classes didn't really understand it. But in this war it all came to a head where it was pretty obvious with total war that there's a bunch of elites sat a few miles behind the trenches running everything and they're completely safe and everyone else is dying, and both sides, the Germans and the English and the French and the Americans, are all pretty much as bad as each other. They're all just sending the working classes to go and die. And this led to a bunch of social change all over the world. I mean, World War I is an incredibly important event. And Paths of Glory really showcases the attitude of the elites in this time period. We see, for example, the elites talk about how pleasant a room is, a room where they literally plan the murder of thousands, the slaughter of thousands. They also have fancy dances and parties. There's an interesting sequence where a character who has been a hero and attempted to save lives, they assume he only tried to save lives to further his own career. I mean, it's a film which is filled with the fact that these people are selfish and cynical and they assume that no one would genuinely look out for a fellow man. It kind of proves the hypocrisy of war, something which is true to this day. War is not carried out for ideological or humanitarian reasons, and the only ideology that really drives some of these people is really just the idea of, well, go and fight, and if you don't fight that you're a bad person, and it's a utter mess of a scenario. And Paths of Glory is fantastically made. It's made with skill and precision. It's such a beautiful film. The black and white cinematography is really stark and really deep focus and really, really mesmerising. There's so much limited light. There's light that comes in just through cracks in walls and through windows. For the 1950s, it's a really standout made film. There is films in the 1950s that are just as well made, but very few are as well made and as just cleanly executed. This is a surprisingly clean film, although there is incredible moments of mud and dirt and soldiers in peril and in pain and in blood-soaked trenches. It is a film which is surprisingly quite clean, and I think that kind of emphasises the disconnect between the people running the war and the people fighting the war. There's also plenty of Stanley Kubrick's best set pieces in this film, and as well as that, there's also probably his most emotional moments for many of his films. I think the execution scene is an incredibly emotional moment, and it's told with Kubrick's usual objectivity and detachment and emotionless depiction of how events went down, as opposed to something that's designed to tug on the heartstrings. But I think by being as realistic as possible, it actually emphasises the struggle and the sadness even more. There's also the fantastic ending sequence, which is this brief moment where soldiers get this brief moment of happiness, and the fact that this happiness happens is significant in and of itself, and without everything else it doesn't mean much, but the fact that they're happy for this moment and they know that it's only going to be a moment is so kind of melancholic and bittersweet that it brings tears to the eyes of the characters, and I think to a good amount of the audience who watch Paths of Glory. It's a very moving moment, and I think it's the real point of the film, is we have to get through all of this and then realise this is just one event in a war that would take millions of lives. You know, it's sad that people have died in this film, but millions more, and the rest of the characters themselves are destined to die as well, fighting this stupid war where all we gain is a few yards of land. It's a very silly predicament, and the whole film is just about exposing this hypocrisy and exposing the lies of the past. This film was controversial in some countries when it came out, because obviously the elites don't want to see a film which is kind of against them, but this is very much a true thing. Of course the film is fictional, but it's based on things that kind of did happen, and it's based on the fact that this era of history was like that. And I think this is a very truthful film that really cuts to the heart of the problems of war and the problems of total war and the effect it can have on man. Kirk Douglas is the lead character here, and he is a noble character, someone who fights for the right thing. And although Paths of Glory is filled with a lot of caricature characters, something Kubrick incidentally kind of doesn't do in a lot of his other films, it still maintains a lot of naturalism. It's a film which just really worked. I think Paths of Glory is a masterpiece, one of the earliest masterpieces from a career filled with them. It's a really fantastic film from the 1950s and one of the best Hollywood films of the era. It kind of went under the radar a little bit. It wasn't a mainstream Hollywood film, but it certainly received some buzz, and it certainly holds up to this day. And I think Stanley Kubrick went on to bigger and better things throughout the rest of his career, so it's a fantastic start and something worth checking out for anyone if you're a fan of Kubrick or just cinema in general. Paths of Glory is a film worth checking out if you can. So that's what I think of Paths of Glory. Have you seen it? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please leave me a comment. If you like this video, please give it a like. If you want to watch more of my reviews, you can subscribe. If you want to read more of my reviews, you can follow me on Letterboxd or on Twitter, links in the description. And thank you for watching.